Truth is that speaking about the general close the Indian, not specifically in the Gemara and like of the Gemara and the beginning of Kesubos. Because I'm not into the Gemara now, and even we're going to learn Kesubos in Yeshiva, but we're not going to start from the beginning to say that it's lately Yeshivas about Yeshivas that we start. The second Perek, or a little bit in the first Perek, maybe the dollar, get got about Bill and Pasbezin, then we go to the second Perek, whatever. So we're going to say a closed dicking, but after all, we can start Kesubos. So it's like by the Mamori we find before that sometimes premise in every mind, but the main thing is the whole beer of an Indian of a certain Indian of Sidus. Starts the posting. Why? That's called the passport. That's the way to get into it. You can't just start having Indian. So you start with a posting, you start with a kasha, and at the end, usually you come to the answer of the kasha. Sometimes it's not even explained how the answer is the kasha. You try to do the same thing here. Mainly it's a closed opinion, like I said, the gather of the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, opinion of Mesiras Nefesh for Kiddush Hashem, the way it is according to the Rambam, according to other Shonim. But we'll get to it through the Gemara. The Gemara here, the Gimel and Beis, the Gemara brings a Braise where it says like this. It says it says that Misakona, when it came Misakona, so then they would know to go on Shlishi and Revi. And the Gemara had, and then it says V'imach Musa'enes, B'sheni Le'yichlev V'imach Musa'enes Mutter. Then the Gemara asks here, what is the pshat? My sakona. It said the sakona change. What's the sakona? If the sakona is the amre that the goyim said, sakona is that the government made the gzeira that you can't get married, the yom revi, you'll get killed. So then, what's the pshat? The Gemara says if it's a sakona, no ago ha'om the gamre neakre. We have to be akid of the gamre. If there's a sakona to get married, the yom revi. Rasha says, so you give him other days. No, that wasn't the sakon. The sakon is the amr psula nisas yem hanisas ve'mervi tiboy l'hag matkila. The sakon is that the government made the gzeira that if anybody is married ve'mervi tiboy l'hag matkila. So the Gemara says, "Hi sakon." It's not a sakon. Einusu. It's einus. And what's the pshat? It's einus, and it's einus is mutter. It's not words. It's einus. She's an Eishes Ishtake because this has also happened after the marriage. The male, she was an Eishes Ish. To go to the Hagmat Chili, you're not allowed to, but it's not, it's Beinus. So it's not a Sakona. So the Gemara says it is a Sakona. And when the Gemara asks it's not a Sakona, why is it not a Sakona? Because since it's an Einus, you're basically allowed. Why? Because it's only Bein, you're not doing it Barotzi. And for the Gemara, Mishum Dik, Tznu is the most in Nafshai B'Tolah. But there are Tznuis, there are Frumef women that will not do it and will be Meisan Nefesh, so it turns into a Sakon. Fastingly, they Sakon will come to Sakon. And then the Gemara asks, well, either should the Einus Shori, so let's darshan that Einus is, let's tell them that the Einus is allowed. They're going to go on Mesiras Nefesh because they don't want to do it because they're Eishes Ish. Let's darshan that the Einus Shori. So the Gemara answers, Ike Fruit says, we don't want to darshan that. But this is the sugya of the Gemara here. Now, why is this Ein Shori? This is one of the Avedas of the Chavidas. You have Koch Nefesh Kulach, except you'll have like Zor Gil Arayis, Shvichas Domim, and this is Gil Arayis. So you have to be Meisa Nefesh. So what did the Gemara say? Ein Shori, Einus is not Shori. So Tosfos goes into that, and Tosfos says here, so why does the Gemara say here that because this is only an Einus, and an Einus is mutter, that is allowed to do it because it's Einus, but here you have to go on Mesiras Nefesh. It's one of the three Avedas. And Tosfos has two truths. One teres I mean the time that Ilas Mitzri, Abilas Goy, if it's a Goy, you don't have to go on Mesiras Nefesh. And the second tenet is that a woman doesn't have to go on Mesiras Nefesh in a case of Gila Rayas. Why? Because it's Karkaila. When can't you go on Mesiras Nefesh? Only if you're doing a Pu'ula. They tell you, bow down to Avedas Zoda, or do a Pu'ula of Gila Rayas. But that you have to go on Mesiras Nefesh. But a woman doesn't do anything. It's only Karkaila. And that's negated not only to this case, but other cases, even by Shvichas Domim. If it's without a pool, the Rosh brings if somebody the government says that, or a guy says to he, kill that person, but not go kill. If he says kill that person, not I'll kill you. That's Yehorig Val Yaver. You have to get killed rather than kill that person. But what happens if the guy says you stand there and I'll just let yourself be pushed off and you'll fall on the tinnik and you'll squash the tinnik and the tinnik will get killed? Do you have to go on Mesiras Nefesh or not? According to the second tenet of Tosfos, you don't have to go on Mesiras Nefesh because it's not a ma'aseh that you're doing. You're just standing there and letting yourself be pushed. So by a woman, by every Gila Arayis is like that. By a man, it's not such a thing because by a man is Ein Tishel Uvadas, the Rosh goes in, but by a woman it's Karkelo. So in both cases, Tosfos answers that it's not the din of Yehorig Val Yaver does not apply here. Okay, so maybe we understand what the Gemara says, that because it's Einus, it's allowed. Comes some of Farshim, so that ask a Shaila that the Chura doesn't fit the Shittas Rambam. How will the Rambam answer this? The Rambam shot in this Gemara because we know the famous machlekes between the Rambam and other Rishonim. Hilchos Yisei Torah, Heilig Hey, where it talks about Israel, the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. So we'll start seeing what the Rambam says here. The Rambam says like this: Kol Beis Yisrael mitzvah al Kiddush Hashem agod lazeh. Every year there's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Shenema v'nigdashti b'seir b'nei Yisrael. And then the Rambam goes on Ketzad. So he brings first an example. If it's another Aveira, not one of the three Aveiras, is Yaver Val Yehorig, Shnemar, Asher Yasei, Odom B'chai Behem, B'chai Behem Eleish Yom Behem. And then the Rambam adds, V'im Mes V'lei Ovar, Arei Zeh Mischai B'nafshe. The Rambam holds that by those other Aveiras, you're not allowed to go on Mesiras Nefesh. Then the Rambam continues, Amed Var Ma'amurim, Aveiras, Kutz Aveiras Zorga, Shutz Domi. These three Aveiras, if a guy says, Aveira Lachas Mem, Eit Yehorig, Yehorig Val Yaver. So the Rambam, and he says it later again, that if he mentioned, he says, in the case where the din is Yaver Val Yehorig, that's now Chadalik, Kol Mishenemer Be Yaver Val Yehorig, the Rambam repeats the same thing he said before. If it says Yaver Val Yehorig, the Nerak V'lei Ovar, Arei Zeh Mischai B'nafshim. If the din is Yaver Val Yehorig, you're not allowed to be Mesa Nefesh. So Rambam says it even twice. Mischai B'nafshim. Mischai B'nafshim means you are committing suicide. You're not allowed to do that. And the Forshim here and the Rambam bring that this is the Rambam Shita, but the Shita of other Rishonim is not like that. That when it says Yaver Val Yehorig, means that you're allowed to be able, but doesn't mean that you have to be able. Adarabet, if a person is Nerak V'lei Ovar, Tzaddik Yikor, it's called a Tzaddik. And this is the famous machlekes between the Rambam and the other Rishonim. The Rambam holds that you're not allowed. If the Torah says that Yaver Val Yehorig, you have to be able. You can't be Yehorig. And if you're Mischai B'nafshe, you push it, commit suicide. You're not allowed to do it. That's what Rambam says. So the first mask is Shayla on this Gemara. The Gemara says that why can't it change? Because the Iket Tznu is the Muslim Nafshai L'Ktola. That's why it's called a Sakana, even though it's a Einus. So why do we say it's a Sakana? Because the Art Tznu is who will go and Mesiras Nefesh and they'll get killed. It's a Sakana. But the Kasha is, according to the Rambam, you're not allowed to get killed. According to the Rambam, Yaver Val Yehorig means that you have to be able. Like not the pshat that you could be able. You're allowed to be able. You have to be able. So how according to the Rambam does the Gemara say that the Art Tznu is? So the Gemara should leader shahu the osir lahorig. So there's no sakana. That's just like the Gemara said before. Leader should ain't a shori. Leader should. The answer is we can't say ain't a shori because it's no. It's won't listen. Maybe don't want to listen. Tell them that Allah Torah says you're not allowed to be able. You have to be able. So what's the pshat in the Gemara? So this Gemara is a raya against the Shittas Rambam. Now the other Mefarshim bring other rayas against Shittas Rambam. But just to give one example, the other Melech brings a raya from a different Gemara, the famous Gemara in Gittin After Zion, where it says that there was a ship that they took by the Churban Beis Hamikdash. They took a ship of Yelodim v'Yelodes, and the kids knew what they're taking him for Averes. And what they did was, so the girls jumped into the water first, and they drowned themselves because they knew that they have to be able to Avere. And then afterwards, the boy came out of Baskol, The Baskel said that about Posik, that they did a good thing. By the way, you always have to say a joke. So you have this famous joke. It says a Posik. What's the chat in the Posik? So the joke goes that since the girl jumped in first, so the Mila, they passed that they're going to come down here again, Gilgul, and they will marry, and they will be the boss over the house. That's the pshat of Zeis Power Kol Chosid. Shape of Mayim Rabim, these that jumped in, okay, that's some Alberto. Yeah, that's the word. Leis Mitzay is a marriage. Anyway, but going back to the point of Pale, according to the Rambam, how did they do that? And the Gemara says there's a Baskel that praised them for doing such a good thing. But according to the Rambam, since we're talking about girls, and by girls, whichever way it is, by women, there's no text that says whether it be accepted as a shayla, what the Rambam holds. The first teretz is faced with the second teretz. Is it because, why is it allowed? Is it because it's a goy, or is it allowed because it's only a ka'ilam? But whichever way it is, this is allowed. And if this is allowed, and the Rambam holds, if the deen is that you're allowed to be able, you have to be able. So what's so good about what the girls do? That's what they ask. But the kaponim, the Gaba argument, this is the shayla. Taisvis. So I think Taisvis and the Mukhi they hold, yeah. Let's get it down.
Did it kind of should have now jumped off and then Muscle comes down and says everyone's
no, there goes Avodah Zarah.
It was after the she did it after.
No, but she did it not to have to do Avodah Zarah.
She was running Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, just Avodah Zarah.
The famous that was in the area Rabbi jumped off afterwards.
That part is another shayla. Has nothing to do with the how that Gemara is a Peladik Gemara.
So maybe
we started with the Kavas. Who Kavas that used to go every day to see Rebbe, and one day he didn't come, and pum that day Rebbe passed away, and Yotza Basko called the Habib Ashkafte the Rebbe, Zuma l'chaye lamabo, and imagine how you felt. Pum today he didn't come, so he jumped off the roof, and Yotza Basko Mezuma nahu Kavas l'chaye lamabo. So that.
You find such things like it doesn't have to, doesn't have to.
So, but you need a beer. Everything needs a beer. Rabbi, you find that's not a teretz. The shaila is what's the beer? So over there we find a different beer. There's a letter from the Tzemach Tzedek called Igeras HaVikuach VaSholem, and there he talks about that. Salderech like Kanoim Pagan Bay, Halocha Bay Maiden Kain. There is such a thing, but we need a beer. Why in that case it's said that, in other cases don't.
That wouldn't work for this.
And that could be you can answer that here. But the Pashtas, what the Gemara says that they jumped in, and according to the Rambam, you're not allowed to, and here they did it, and it's all for Gilarayis, which there is a din that this is God, but the women it's mutter, and the male, why was it so good that they did it? Well, it's not a shayla, but what's negated to us is the same thing in this Gemara where it says that the Tznuis went on Mesiras Nefesh, even though according to the Rambam they were not allowed to go on Mesiras Nefesh. How does the Gemara say that we're worried about them? Should have said Litrish or who the egg is not on short. You have to go out, you have to be able to not go on Mesiras Nefesh. So to get to answer that, obviously. This was not Shasak Zayre. The Yala Melech has the Shaila. The Shaila is what's called Shasak Zayre. This goes into a second subject together. Is this called Shasak Zayre? It wasn't Arkas in the Masan. It wasn't Arkas in the Masan. They took him and they were going to do it. It was. Yeah. It wasn't that they were Arkas and Dan. They were going to do it whether you like it or not. They're not trying to make you go. They're not trying. Arkas and Masan means they're trying to do it. Today you should be able. Here wasn't trying to do it. They were going to do it for their own thing.
They said it was for the goyim also.
What's there?
This boy has with chilul.
Oh, he's talking about that story with the jumping off.
Oh, right.
But it wasn't the Gzeira that you have to be able to give Arayas. If they say, I want you to give Arayas, not because he wants his Hanoah. That's the example. If you want your Hanoah, then it's not Arkas and Masanda. If you're doing it because I want you to be able, it's not the word there. It wasn't they wanted to be able. They want to do it for themselves. The Shaila, do you have to go on Mesiras Nefesh? According to Rambam, so you're not, don't have to for sure because it's Nainis. According to whichever way shot, like the two such tasteless. But Lepel Mamish, they, according to the Rambam, they were not allowed to do it because it's Yahweh Rav Yehedet. Yahweh Yehedet, he shouldn't be allowed to do it. And how could the Gemara say they did this? So what you have to do, get into this.
Could it be unfairness?
How much you cannot do it? You could just ask for your husband. She could do it. She could do it. Okay, and it becomes also the husband. That what is, I'll give an example. Which people would be Mason Nefesh? So, from a very woman, and Kahanis because they're afraid, not afraid they'll be all come also to their husband. But it's not that they're allowed to do it. So, obviously, in order to get to this, to explain it, we have to go through the sheet of the Rambam. The sheet of the Rambam has certain questions that we have. First of all, you have to understand what's the story of the Machlokes between the Rambam and the other Rishonim. The Rambam holds Yaver Val Yerik that you have to be able, according to the other Rishonim, you don't have to be able. What's the story? Now, the Kesubos brings the story, not the story, but he says it's all based on how we teach Yaver Val Yerik. You could teach Yaver, you may be able, or Yaver, you shall be able. So it's a Machlokes how to teach Yaver Val Yerik. Good, that doesn't explain it. It just says he learns this Pshat in Yaver and he learns this Pshat in Yaver. But what's the svara behind it? Why would he hold like this Yaver and he hold like this Yaver? What's the Pshat? Now, there's another way you could learn Be'emes L'chore that it depends in the famous Schapiro what the gather of Amos is. Or if there's a thing that you have to be able, or you're allowed to be able. So you could say it depends on in the gather of Amos is. We have the famous Schapiro that Rabbi Yisrael has. He has it in different aspects. He has in so Akaponim Tachkira is like this. Is the Pshat Eines Achmon Patri means that the person did an Aveira, but you can't punish him. You can't punish the person. Why? Because it was not his fault. You could answer, he has a good excuse why it happened, because he didn't want to do it. But Aveira is still an Aveira. Then the other side is that the way that Rabbi says, that if a Maisa done by Eines is not misyaches to him, it's not as if he did the Aveira. That's the other way. From the Loshen, a little bit of Loshen, if you say it's only that we have a good excuse for him, fits a little bit. If you find the Loshen in the beginning of Kesubos, and gay kind of sayiness, so the Loshen is yesh time sayiness begin rain, which are time sayiness. I think it's a Loshen Rashi. I didn't even look it up now. The Loshen time for the whole deal of Eines, according to one svara, is you have a good time, you have a good excuse. The other way is not a time sayiness; it's an Eines. An Eines is nothing. Eines begin or yesh Eines begin. But if you use the Loshen Tainus, and I think someplace that says, I think Rashi, other places, Yesh Tainus saying that all fits the first way, that the gather of Ainus means that you have a good excuse, but Aveira is still an Aveira. Elamai, we can punish you for it. The other way is not like that. The other way is that the Aveira is not Misyachas. Then you can learn the third way also, that it's not even Aveira. Basically, brings Rayas, ahead in the Rayas, it becomes like the Rayas comes from Dingen. Shaila is Challah. The way it comes out, the way he's tightened is that if it's not misyaches, it's more svara to be Aveira. What's the svara behind it? If it's not misyaches, it's not an Aveira. He tightens that even if a person didn't do it, as long as the mice is a mice Aveira, it's called an Aveira. It's a raya. One raya is, it says a ner that was lit by a goy on Shabbos, you can't use for Havdalah, because it's Nasa Be'Aveda, the Gemara says. Who did the Aveda? No one did the Aveda. It's a guy. Assuming that Aveda itself doesn't count, which is schwer to understand. But these are all brought to go into. The Nekuda is there are two ways to learn Eines. Is the Eines of Pshat that you did the Aveda? Elamai Torah said that we can't blame you, the male you can't punish you don't get an Eines. Or the Pshat is it's not misyachas. You didn't do the Aveda. Or if you go a third way, even that the Aveda is not even called an Aveda if it's Beinus. So you could learn that's a little bit that you saw to what Machlokes is. If you learn Eines is the Pshat that the Aveira is an Aveira, and you actually did the Aveira, Elamai, we can't punish you. So here we could understand, I swear, that you shouldn't want to do it, and you should have a right not to do it. Even though the Lashon Gemara is Yaver Al Yeherig, doesn't mean you have to be able. You could be able. Why? But if you don't want to be able, you don't have to, because you don't want to do the Aveira, because it's an Aveira. Mechanchim, if you hold the Eines of the Pshat, it's not an Aveira, it's not Misyachas to you, it's not an Aveira, or at least it's not, you did the Aveira. If you didn't do Aveira, on what basis should you allow yourself to get killed? You're getting killed for nothing. Like the Rambam says, you must chai b'nafshe. So you could learn, maybe that's the Shita, the Svara of the Machlokes, and that's the Shita Rambam. The Rambam holds that when you do, when Maaseh Eines is not an Aveira b'chlal, if it's not an Aveira b'chlal, then Avada you can't do. But the Shverikite is, it does the Rambam hold like that, because there are other places where Mashran from the Rambam, other ways that Maaseh Aveira Be'eines is not an Aveda. This is mashma.
Connected with the Maseches throughout with the Rabbi.
Force. Could be. I don't know if he brings it, then he brings all kinds of ayahs and sort of species.
The Rambam holds it is an Aveda.
So what we're saying until now is that the Rambam holds that you have to be able because it's not an Aveda. But it's mashma from other places. I feel like for one of the places here, some before should say this, that the Rambam, when he says this, he says that if a person's able and Aveda, which he wasn't by the Zora, you have to get killed. But if he didn't, the Rambam says Bezna won't punish him. Here. Words. Ba'afa became a place over Bainis a Malkinese. Banks are claimish a Manisnese Bezna. I feel a Horak Bainis. Shein Malkin and Manisnel Ever Bertzene Baden Vasroy. He makes a Kalvachemer. I have to go into the details of the Raya, but the Kude is makes a Kalvachemer. If you don't give him Malchus, you don't give him, certainly you don't give him Misa, if it's Chayim Misa. The Kude is not a Kalvachemer. If it's not an Aveda, it's the same thing. If it's an Aveda, we don't punish, we say for this Aveda, you don't punish, certainly for worse punishment, you don't give him. But if it's only that it's not because it's not an Aveda, so it says the same thing. It's like, oh, he didn't do any Aveda. It's not a Kalvachem one to other. Another Nakuda they bring here because it says the Rambam brings a Raya, but besides that, Varaya so Emel Anaira Lisasa Dover. So what does the Rambam bring? A second that I also want to say because what the Rambam is trying to say that the whole thing is like Sasa Dover. The whole thing is that you can't punish. Aveda is an Aveda, but not Anaira Lisasa Dover. No, but the Shiloh of Anus is the same. You want to say a new thing that I feel like an Anus, which kind of Aveda babies? The Shiloh is no, the Shiloh is Bikuk Nafan Anus. So the Chura is the same by everything should be. And he says even by Malchus. He didn't Aveda by Malchus, which is not one of the three Avedas. He doesn't Malchus for that. And he says you don't punish him. No, and Bechal Miseichel, it's all one idea. This child of pain, what is together?
It's not a Raya itself, because the Ram is saying that comes out of my sense and didn't this guy Malchus and Misa. The father is Leib with Shemaim and Mechal Estal Shem Kachim. So you see clear that Misa that's a this, which is like Misa. At the same time, it's not Misa Vera. Why is it not a clear Raya? Because if you didn't Chai Shemaim, you're always Estal Shem Kachim, even though you're Rainis, right? Yeah. Is that a clear Raya?
No, because he should. No, because he should have gotten killed.
Yeah, but Ma'aseh didn't do Ba'anis. He didn't Ba'anis.
Yeah.
This is not Chayim.
Right.
Apple PK in this Ma'aseh is still Ma'aseh Ra because in Shemayim the punch is Kash and Kachi. So that's not a clear Raya that the Ma'aseh did Ba'anis. It's still Ma'aseh. It's not a hook. It's a hook from a Ma'aseh. That's it.
Okay. It could be. Yeah, I hear what you say. So it makes it harder to make that chilik that the Rambam. The reason why the Rambam holds that way is because he holds that there is no Aveda, no Aveda. What they said, because it seems like he holds that there is an Aveda. There is something. The English means there is an Aveda. Like you're saying.
And Chai Behem is Mechai not to die. That's the pshat. That's what's pshat in Rambam. Chai Behem is Mamish Mechai. That even though it's an Aveda, you're not allowed to give your life. That's the Rambam's goal. If it's an Aveda, it's what's pshat. You're not allowed to give your life. You're not.
So that's we're back to the question. That's back to the question. What's the pshat? So, Chura could be another way, which is also not a house of border, but it's another way to explain it, to fight juries. The etzem, if not for any psukim, what would we think? Do you have to be Mesa Nefesh and all Averis or not? You learn two ways. You learn here, Torah's up, you have to keep Shabbos. You're not Mechal Shabbos. There's no end to it. You can't be Mechal Shabbos and then you form a shape. Or Al Piseichel, we'd say, not if you. It doesn't mean that you, even when you have to get killed instead, so far it doesn't go. Shaila's word would be the mokeh for each one, but Bapashtas, and that could be told. Because when the Pasuk says B'chai B'hem, all the Pasuk does, it takes the original din, the way it would be Al Piseichel Be'etzem, and makes a darga less. If you hold Be'etzem, you have to be Mesa Nefesh. So what does the B'chai B'hem tell you? You don't have to be Mesa Nefesh. But doesn't mean you can't. If you hold a chatchila that be'etzim you don't have to be meisa nefesh for other readers, but you could. So when the pasuk says v'chai b'hem, means that you're not allowed to. But again, al piseichel again, what would be the svara behind this? Especially the al piseichel, if you learn Poshet Psukim, why would there be a svara that you shouldn't have to go to Mesiras Nefesh? Who should you don't have to go to Mesiras Nefesh? The pasha should be every Aveda, you should have to go to Mesiras Nefesh. Taylor says don't do it, and that's it. There's nothing to do. So we have to we're back to trying to understand what is the svara of the machlekes between the Rambam and the other Sheni. Then there are other shilas here. The Rambam, a lot of close the shilas and protest the shilas. So let's take the Rambam here. Let's put this away. Second, go into the Rambam. Look at the Rambam. One shaila here is like this. The Rambam starts off by saying, "Kol beis Yisrael mitzuvin al kiddush Hashem agor lazeh." Shenemar in the Gdash Leib Seif Yisrael. If I would write the Rambam, I wouldn't write it like that. I would have written, Kol beis Yisrael mitzuvin lehoreg al zomus al kiddush Hashem. What is he saying? Mitzuvin al kiddush Hashem. What's kiddush Hashem? And he goes on to explain. But why doesn't he say the first thing when he asks any person? There's a mitzvah of kiddush Hashem. What is the mitzvah of kiddush Hashem? We always say it's machna kiddush Hashem, machna shechil Hashem. Talking about the real official mitzvah from kiddush Hashem. You have to get killed. That means a certain elamai. It's only by certain avay. It's not by everything. But there's a mitzvah to get killed kiddush Hashem. Then the Rambam would explain when is that? Only by these three avayas. But why doesn't he start off the way you would have expected to start off? I think it's a matter of the kasha. Why doesn't he say what he's supposed to say? That we should understand clearly what he's saying. That's one shot.
Why does he start with the living?
No, that's the second kasha. That's another kasha. I have another kasha. That's it also. Why does he say it in a modern derech? He starts off with the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. And what should he say? Keitzat, that by the three Averis, if someone tells you, do the Aveir, if not, I'll kill you. So you have to get killed. What does the Rambam do? He starts off like this. The word is a mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, Nikdash Mitzvah, Masor Shleil Chal. Keitzat. Isho sheyamid goy v'yadnes Yisrael lav alachas mikol mitzvah moris b'ktei yargenu. Akol mitzvahs. Yaver al yorim. Shenema b'mitzvahs v'chai b'hem l'eish yomas b'hem. Not only that, you're not allowed to. Then comes halacha beis. Amet vorim amurim shar mitzvahs. Chutz ma'aved zora g'rash v'kedonim. Al sholosh aveiros elu in yemar le'aver alachas mehen neik tehoreg yehoreg bal yav. It's a modern way. You should have heard of Ketzat, the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem. Kiddush Hashem is to get killed. You should Ketzat, when the three Aveiros come, get killed. By the three, by the almost you don't have to get killed. That would be a normal derech, the way the Rambam would have written. So we have the two shilas, which are major shilas in what the Rambam is saying. First of all, why doesn't he say very clear the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem to get killed like Kiddush Hashem? And the second shilah is, why does he write that? And not only what does he write first, whether he writes first the one that you don't have to get killed, and then the one that you have to kill, he makes it in a separate halacha, which makes it even worse. Maybe if it would be one halacha, but it's a one halacha, he goes like, it's also nishkenteret, so it's at least not as bad. But this way, it seems like it's a new halacha. First, the case side of Kiddush Hashem is that you have to be able on the other Averis. You have to be able. And then another thing, but a new prat here. That's why it's mashman like that.
Second question answers the first question. It's just the second question.
Yeah, so right. The both don't make sense.
Right.
Exactly. So obviously we see there's Rambam trying to tell us something more than what we just think what the Rambam looks like. That's what you have to say. Now we have to see what the pshat is. Right there are some aversion on Mesh, I think, on Smag. Says the Rambam, why does the Rambam mention first, the second type of Shiloh, why does the Rambam mention first those that Yaver Val Yeherek? Because the person might think that the reason the Torah says Yeherek Val Yaver, because the Eibishter doesn't really care about the Guf of a Yid. He says, you get killed. That's a wrong thing. It's not true. The Eibishter cares about the Guf of a Yid. Elamai, there's a din here of Yeherek Val Yaver. So the Rambam starts off first. First he says, you should know that by most Averes, is Yaver Val Yeherek. The Meila Simon the Eibishter cares much about you. Elamai, but these Averes is a Chiddush. So this answers why that comes first. But the way, the Lashon, the way he says, is still not answered. Ketzad is the, we shouldn't say Ketzad. I feel he could have said Ketzat, but he should have said Ketzat. Alpha Pisha Alavedas is Yahavel Yahereg. Alpha became by these Pravedas, the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, and you have to get killed. So it still, it answers our shtickle, makes it a little bit some kind of sweater behind. And then there are more like protestic things in the Shainis of the Rambam later on. Repeats it, whatever, maybe get to it and we'll see if we have the chance to answer that. So to explain that, let me bring in, and you're all waiting for when would the Likkutei Sichos come in. So now I came to it. Likkutei Sichos Chelik and Beis. It's actually harder one of the Mamorim the Rebbe writes. The Rebbe writes like this: V'locha nirali, niraleima, yesh b'mesiras nefesh shnei inyonim. Mashahu prat b'mitzvos acheres. B'chura would be pashtus. There's 3 avedas that you have to get killed for. So when you get killed by these 3, any of these 3 avedas, you're mekayim the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. So it's a prat mitzvahs acheres. Tainu shemekayim mitzvahs avedas zorah gilarais v'chudu. V'gamim omer leisha yehoreg al deizeh because they're mekayim. Okay, and then he goes with the more. That's one meaning. Then you have, he says, mashehi mitzvah b'fnei atzmo. Lives the nefesh on Hashem. There's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. It's a page 214. It's a mitzvah b'fnei lim the nefesh al Kiddush Hashem, and that could be other ways you give a guy. I can say the Masana, like you tapir sapir machir ageder. Hey, I make the zorah gilar ice because mamish. And then he goes this negay to a goy, whether it goes on the goy or not. That's the negay why the Rebbe says this. But the whole letter here is negay. It's a letter from the Rebbe. It's not a sikha. But the bottom line is, he says here that there are 2 gdorim in the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. It's a prat in the 3 avedas, and then it's a mitzvah for itself. So we have to try to understand, what does it mean it's a mitzvah for itself? How is Kiddush a mitzvah for itself? And not the shaila how. That's not the shaila. The shaila, who says that you have to get killed for this mitzvah? In other words, there's a mitzvah to get killed. And when you get killed for Avodah Zorah, you're mekayim 2 things. You're mekayim the mitzvah of Avodah Zorah, like you're not doing Avodah Zorah, and you're mekayim a separate mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Because there's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem to get killed. But if there's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem to get killed, who said this? The pasuk says, "When how do you know it means to get killed?" Maybe it means Pasha, but we call make a Kiddush Hashem. How do you know what it means? It has to do with getting killed. But the way it comes out, and everyone learns like that the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is to get killed, and it's a mitzvah of to get killed for the Kiddush Hashem. It needs a little hasbara. How do you explain the singing of the mitzvah of So to explain that, we'll go to something else.
You're asking, how do you know it's part of the Kiddush Hashem, not just the limud from the anus?
What do you mean?
There's a limud that says that.
For the 3 avedas.
Yeah.
The Rambam goes into the limud.
No, but
so that's all. Why? Yeah. So why do we connect it to Kiddush Hashem as a mitzvah of Nazi? If you say that this will be, what you're saying is that you're mekayim a mitzvah of Nazi, the fact that you got killed for this, you're mekayim the mitzvah of Nazi Kiddush Hashem. How does that work? So, not only from Likkutei Sichos, but there's a Sicha from the Frierdiker Rebbe, Sefer HaSicha Sing Tovshin Hei, where he says like this: there was a time when the government in Russia made a whole asifa, and they called 4 people, and they wanted to make all kinds of changes in Yiddishkeit. And the representative of Chassidim was the Tzemach Tzedek, and the representative for the Snagdim for the Litvische was Rabbi Volozhiner. That's when the Tzemach Tzedek got very friendly with Volozhiner, and that's when the famous word goes that Chassidim saw, the Snagdim saw that the Chassidim can learn, and the Chassidim saw that the Snagdim Leich Yerushalayim. I mean, that's what it goes like. That's when the Sholem came. That's what it says. But then there was a discussion between the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rabbi Volozhiner. And this is what he quotes that Tzemach Tzedek said to Rabbi Volozhiner. He said to him like this: "In Torah is nishtoke mitzvah for Mesiras Nefesh." He says that in Torah there's no mitzvah Mesiras Nefesh. Sedoa mitzvah from Kiddush Hashem, Kiddush Hashem ein lo shir. Sounds a little like Himmelberger, but this is what the Lashon he quotes from the Tzemach Tzedek, what he said to Rabbi Volozhiner. I know it doesn't say that Rabbi Volozhiner accepted it or didn't, or what he argued or did, but that's what the word says. So what's the word? That's nishtok in mitzvah Mesiras Nefesh, but it's not mitzvah Kiddush Hashem and Kiddush Hashem. Now, if there's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, which means to get killed to Kiddush Hashem, then there is a mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh. So what do you mean there's no mitzvah in the Torah of Mesiras Nefesh? There is a mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh. Elamai, depends how you go. So you should have said, the mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh is based on Kiddush Hashem. But he says, Nishtokim mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh, als Mesiras Nefesh itself, it's the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, and Kiddush Hashem is Hodesh Kishi. How does that fit to saying there's no mitzvah? So according to what I'm going to explain, I think it'll explain that too. So I want to say like this. The pshat in both side what the Rebbe writes here, side what the Tzemach Tzedek said, it's all based like this. Let's look in the difference in the Lashon, the way it says in Sefer HaChinuch, in the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, and the Sefer HaMitzvah Rambam. So I'll read the Lashon I have written here. I'll read the Lashon of Chinuch. The Chinuch says like this: Mitzvah Reich Tzadik Bo. Shenitztaveinu lekadesh Hashem. Shenema v'nikdashti b'sich Yisrael. Kloimar shenimser nafshenu lomus al kiyum mitzvah hadas. So he says clearly, Kloimar, what is the mitzvah? Lomus. Nimser nafshenu lomus al kiyum mitzvah hadas. Ukvar bi'aruzal. So there is a mitzvah that we have to get killed, but not so Chazal figured out which mitzvahs are this for. So he learns clearly that the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, which is mitzvah Yisakov, Dashti, that's the mitzvah. Look at the Sefer HaMitzvah. It says like this. The mitzvah is shetzivonu lekadesh mei, v'hu omrei v'nigdashti b'sefer Yisrael, v'inyan zeis ha-mitzvah, asher anachnu mitzuvim lefarse bo amuna hazeis ba'elam, v'sholei nefachit b'hezek shumazik, v'af al-pish, it's a long arichas, v'af al-pish bo aleinu machriach, levakesh men lichpei sholei nishmei lekum samdi, avol nimser atzmeinu lemiseh. He doesn't mention Misa, but he mentioned the Techat Borim that you have to show that nobody tell us what to do. We have to do what David wants, and we won't care, and we will give ourselves even to Misa. And here he said, and then the Mechanchim brings his lotion of the Rama Sefer HaMitzvah. So we see two main differences between the Sefer HaChinuch and the Sefer HaMitzvah, the Rambam. The Rambam doesn't connect this mitzvah to the three Avedas. The Rambam just starts off the mitzvahs, Mitzuvim L'Kadesh Hashem, and then he says you have to give us a yeah, and that's the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, and he doesn't even bring B'chlal the three Avedas here. The Rambam doesn't bring this mitzvah, the three Avedas. That's one thing. And the second thing is, the Rambam, the Chinuch starts off right away that the mitzvah is Nimshel Hashem Lomos. Goes on the mitzvah, Hashem, the Rambam doesn't start off. The Rambam says that the mitzvah is Asher Mitzuvim Lefarsem Amunah Zebulei Nefachet Be'ezek Shumar, and he finishes off. Aval, what? That's the mitzvah. So what should we do? We do Nimser Natzmeinu Lemisa. Ritzaleimer HaTorah Natzmeinu Lomos.
Schapiro. They learn Rambam, Sefer Mitzvahs.
Yeah.
They don't know about that.
And they learn like the Rambam. Especially I'll explain the Rambam. They know what I'm going to say. So say like this. The Chinuch L'Chure learns that the mitzvah of Nikdashti is not a mitzvah for itself. In other words, this that the Rebbe says that there's a mitzvah for itself of Nikdashti is only Shittas Rambam. The Chinuch learns not like that's why I'm going to say the other Rishonim will learn. There's a mitzvah of Kiddush. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is only a prat in the three Avedas. That's what he starts off. So the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem to get killed. That when it comes to these three Avedas gets killed. And Chomim learned out how do we know what the three Avedas? So they learn how to deal with it. But there's the mitzvah to get killed. If you do this mitzvah, it's a mitzvah that's counted in the mitzvah in the minyan mitzvahs as a separate mitzvah. But it all is a prat in the three Avedas. But maybe that's the reason why the Rasag side you're going doesn't even count mitzvah Kiddush Hashem amongst the mitzvahs. Because if you learn like this, it would make sense that it's not even a separate mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of the three Avedas, Yerek Val Yaveh, and through that you're doing with Nikdashte, but it's all only an extension and part of the three mitzvahs. Akaponim, the chinuch would not learn, it does count it as a separate mitzvah. But we understand what's a separate mitzvah. You are a kind of separate mitzvah, but the teichon of that mitzvah is the mitzvah claimer. He says that for the three Avedas we have to get killed. That's what the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is. The Rambam Efsher learns not like that. The Rambam learns the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is not that you have to get killed for anything. The Rambam learns the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is that we know that we have no other balabos but the Eibishter. That's all. All the Eibishter, all the balabos. And when the Eibishter gave us something to do, it's not up to us to decide whether we're going to do it or not. And we have to do it till the end. In other words, the Eibishter didn't give us a mitzvah and gave us conditions that sometimes you could decide, you could want. And Bamelo, how does the mitzvah express itself? The mitzvah expresses itself that what the Eibishter said, first of all, by the three Avedas, he said that you have to get killed because of the limudim. That's it, you have to do it. But the mitzvah, the Kiddush Hashem is also, the Eibishter said, V'chai bohem, you don't decide what to do or not. If he said V'chai bohem, you have to live with it and not get killed. This is the Mokher of the Rambam, the Sorah of the Rambam, why it's Yaver Al Yeherek means it's not up to you to decide whether you want to get killed or not. And we're talking about when David gives the fact that sometimes could happen, that there's certain halachas where it says that it depends to you, you can do this, you can do this, could happen, that's a prat. But to make a klal in the Torah, that this, how far it goes, the klal, in keeping the klal is the mitzvah of a chayben, which is a mitzvah on the kol Torah kula, you can't say that David gave it over in a way that we could decide what we want to do. That's why the Rambam in Sefer HaMitzvahs does not start by saying, like the chinuch, that the mitzvah of Nikdash is that Kleiman Nimsar and Saying Misa. It's not Misa. When a person does other things, which shows that the Eibishter is the Balabos, he's also a kind of mitzvah Kiddush Hashem. The result is that if a person is Eiver, when the Torah says Yaver Bal Yaharek, which means the Rambam holds it's not the mitzvah itself of a chayvim is not given over to the individual to decide whether he's going to do it or not. And if you're Eiver, you are Mekayim the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Because you're saying, showing the Eibishter have to do, just like the same Eibishter who said that you have to get killed there, says here, maybe the Torah means that it's up to you. That's a stira to the whole mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Kiddush Hashem is that it's not up to you. Kiddush Hashem is showing that the Eibishter, and that's the Rambam Shainis. There's nobody's going to tell us what to do. Now again, I'm avoiding it. It's not the pshat that can be. Sometimes we find the deen that should be some things. Torah says that in this case, it depends in certain situations. But as a klolus dikazach of a chai behem, you can't say that. So this explains the machlekes between the Rambam and the Chinuch. The Chinuch goes according holds this for it that this is a prat in mitzvahs kiddush, a prat in the three avedas. Hashem and the Rambam holds not the prat. Now this is the pshat you could say in what it says. The Rebbe writes that there's two inyonim kiddush Hashem. When you are Mekayim the mitzvah, the Gimel Avedas, it's a Kiddush Hashem, but you're Mekayim. Because by those Avedas, where the Torah says you have to get killed, you're Mekayim, it's a Kiddush Hashem. But it doesn't have to be by them. It could be other cases also. Because in other cases also, it's a mitzvah of Ne'atzmei. It's a mitzvah of Ne'atzmei. That's what the Rambam, and that's why the Rambam starts off. Kol Beis Yisrael doesn't say Mitzuvin Lehorek al Kiddush Hashem, because the Rambam goes to the Shirtos, like he writes, not the mitzvah Lehorek. The mitzvah is Lekadesh B'Shkit Hashem Agod Lazeh. And then he starts off Ketzad. And he brings two examples of Kiddush Hashem. And the first one is B'Shor Sheyamek Goy B'Yanis Yisrael Laver Lachem Tzotera Yaver Ba'al Yehorik. He's not allowed to. The Leish Yom is Behem. The Imes, it's all part of the same mitzvah. The Imes V'Leyovar Harei Mischai B'Nafshe. Because you're not allowed. There's a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem to be able to show that the Eibishter told me to do this, and I'm going to do this. It's like some people think that sometimes, you can be more freer than the Torah. Say the Kotzker said that B'Shasa, mensch wird alt and has nobody Yitzhahorah. What does the Yitzhahorah tell him to do? So nobody tells him to do. Komt im Kippur and the doctor says you should eat. The doctor Yitzhahorah, the doctor said, but Kippur, I could eat in Kippur. The Selber Eibishter was gesagt that you have to fast in Kippur. The Selber Eibishter you have to eat. If I can't, you're showing this. And we find that in the Svarim, that forget it's. I mean, they say the story with the Divrei Chaim. Last year, I think, before he passed away, the doctor said if he eats chrein, mortar, I guess they didn't even have lettuce there, Russia or Alicia. You eat chrein, you can eat horseradish, it's for it. And he said, how could I not? How could I not eat it? I said, mitzvah mortar, how could I not eat it? It's like a bet to them, the mishpach, nothing helped. They thought, who came to the Seder, before the Seder started, they told him, please, no. After the kach, when it came actually to eat mortar, he took kazayis and mortar and put it up, and they tried to stop it. And the story goes, and some question if the story is true, exactly the way it's told, that he took the mortar, took the kazayis, and the last minute, they thought he's, who knows, he didn't care. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Yisrael. Ina melech Elam Ashkechondem and Tzveisa Vitzivonu Al Mitzvahs V'Nishmarta Meidol Nafshesechem, and he put it down. Now, some people question it. I saw it, it's written, and the order is there, how could you make a broch? So maybe he said without Shem Amal. I don't know what was there. But it's a mitzvah, the same mitzvah. And that's what the Rambam holds. The Rambam holds the mitzvah is to be able. Mitzvah is not to be able. And that's why he starts. Then he goes another halach, another prat, where you also see, and there it goes further. And there it says, Bishar mitzvahs are here, you have to get killed. And if you look what the Rambam says in Sefer HaMitzvah, he says, the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is without an end. Whatever the Eibishter wants you to do, that's what you're going to do. If he wants you to get killed, it goes all the way to get killed. Now read again the Lashonis, let's say the Lashon.
The Sefer HaMitzvah's problem is, it doesn't say the other side. Right? Like this sheet of the Rambam should have said the other side that the Chiddush is that it's just to live.
You think my Chiddush is so strong that the Rambam should have written it clearly? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
There's a Lashon of the Rambam here.
But no, but he said, I'll read you again.
Sefer Mitzvahs, the introduction is fits perfectly.
Here.
But the
Tzivon Lekadosh, Leib Nefach, Bafa Pishabol Machriach, Leib Nishmailot, Avon Nimser Atzmeinu Lemisa means all the way till Misa. All the way, even if it means Misa, wherever there's a din of Misa. In other words, he's including that in all on board, that we have to show that we're doing everything he wants, all the way, even if it means to get killed. And then he says, Lomus, not the dying itself. I want to die Lomus till death. Nothing will stop. Because that's what our mitzvah is. The mitzvah is Kiddush Hashem. And that's why the Rambam doesn't write Lahorik, and that's why the Rambam doesn't bring this first. And other, like the small protein of the Rambam, you could also explain, but that's not the Akaponim. What am I trying to get? So this is the way you could learn Pshat in the Rambam, Machlekes in the Rambam, and Taisvis. Taisvis learned that portion of the mitzvah Kiddush Hashem is a mitzvah of the three Averis, and that's it. But other Averis, Yavar Val Yeherik means you couldn't be Aver. If you could be dying, you don't have to be Aver. But the Rambam holds that's the whole mitzvah Kiddush Hashem, and that's the mokher of what the Rambam gets it. Yes, the Shaila, what does the Rambam get? What is this Raya that this Yaver means? You must be Aver. It's a sense that I said. But second, exactly that I said. It's all part of Kiddush Hashem. Now, what is it only get argument? The Fizeh, it'll come out, you could say it like this. What happens when you're talking about mitzvah, which clearly doesn't fall under the category of a Chai Bahem? But you also don't have to be Mechanchim. The case of Argibor in Kesubos, which is a case of Gil Arayis. Obviously, places as a case of Gil Arayis should be Yarad Bayav. The Pale Mamish, there's a Zaitik Azach, a side reason why you don't have to be Mechanchim. Why? Either one of the two svaras is because it's a goy, or because it's a Karkaelov, but the Pale you don't. Would the Rambam still agree here that Yaver Val Yeherik means you have to be able? Because the whole word is why do you have to be able? Because the V'chai Bahem that Eibusha said cannot be left to interpret yourself. If I want, I'll do this. If I want, I'll do this. And that's why I kept on saying before. Doesn't mean it can be. There's certain things that the Torah himself says that you're allowed to do it, or you could do it this way, do it this way. It doesn't mean that the Torah doesn't do it. But when we're talking about general ideas, like the posik of Kiddush Hashem, The chai bahem can be left to you to decide. But here, this is not v'chai bahem. Or it's not included in v'chai bahem. It's Gilarayis is not v'chai bahem. For zweite Seite, there's a Seite gesagt that changes that. But Mele, here would become a shaila. So the Chura, it's possible to say that the Rambam will agree that such cases you are allowed to get killed. Because the whole reason you can't get killed because the V'chai Behem says Yaveh, because if it's V'chai Behem, David said V'chai Behem means that he's not giving it up to you to decide. Here it's no V'chai Behem. It's no V'chai Behem. On the other hand, you don't have to get killed because there's a Zaitik reasons why you get killed. So here you might say that Rambam will agree that if you want, you could be Yehodik.
Why is sort of if the pack is based on because it's a Nairosa, because it's a show from Eichhauses, from Mitzicha. But Mitzicha, the whole year, only when you're.
1 second, by when you calculate
the Chiyah
makes a nefesh.
By Rice is from Nairosa.
Right.
Which is Canada from Mitzicha.
Yeah.
Mitzicha, as far as Eichhauses. Eichhauses doesn't apply.
No, but they were talking about the Rotzen. That was expected to do with the Rotzen. But we showed that they're connected. But the case of the Posik is talking when she did it Barotzen.
But
if it's done by Eina, she's spotted.
My chazis don't do it at Meiser. My chazis, if you're not Balatinit, by Tzicha, the loch is, whatever you kill to the cheese, you're not Balatinit. So we learn out.
You don't have to get killed.
No, yeah. So not Canada, so too, the only Chiyah of your life is a Meiser. Maybe that's integral to the actual limit itself. That's the whole chiyah.
I'm not sure. You could say that, but I tell some of these bochum when they ask this question, tell them you could say that. Then what will you have? You have a kasha. I think there's a difference. You won't have a kasha. I'm telling you. I mean, it's not but your kasha could be. It can be different. You could say that this case is different, even though there's a limit. But lavdafka that this prat we compare it, and then you could say that the word here is because this is not part of a chai bahem. You could say that's what from the comparison might have a sword and say not. Okay, it's a sword. Yeah, no, it's definitely Zaytik in the Kuder because you're not Eisa Maisa. And for not being Eisa Maisa, you can be Chai.
A Goydo might not be Zaytik. The first answer, it's not that Zaytik.
So there are some not that again, this meaning I'm saying, some say that the Rambam holds the second answer. You want to bring it right, the place itself slogs up the first answer. So I'm saying, I'd say both could be, but I say the second answer Avad could be. It's a Zaytik Azach. So B'meila, if you learn like that this is, if you're going to learn that this is Zaytik Azach, B'meila, and it's not part of the here, maybe it doesn't hold that. Why normally, if you're allowed to be able, you have to be able. So, because normally we learn that I'm shot. That's why we had a kasha. The Radal last actually the kasha, and the Gemara brings this. How would the Rambam learn? Normally we learn that Rambam holds any time the din is that you don't have to get killed, automatically means you're not allowed to get killed. You learn like that, you have a good kasha in the Gemara. How does the Gemara say that the Tznuos are allowed to do it? The Tznuos are not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to get killed. But what I'm saying is not because Be'etzem it's like that. It's all because that's how we learn the Pshat in the B'chai Bahem and how we learn in part of an Ikdashti as a klal that the Torah will not make dinim. Klal is the dinim. But in the case where it's possible that it should be different, we have no right that the Rambam holds. And L'chura Paket, the Rambam would hold to this. The same thing with the second kasha that Yana Melech asks. Yes, the Shaila, when the girls who jumped in the water, and the Shaila he asked, how could you say they're not allowed, since they're Karka Ilom, they're not allowed to get killed? And how come the gospel came out and said it was a great thing they did? Because there is the same thing. They were Kasha, was Karka Ilom. It's Karka Ilom, it's not part of a Chai Behem because it's Gilai Rayas. And at the same time, there's no Chai Behem, but it's Gilai Rayas, so it's in between. So here there's a possibility to say that this is the, in other words, I'll tell you the Rambam, and I could have started off the whole shir with the Kasha of the Teretz. That's all. That the Kasha was, how could we, the Gemara say that the Tznuos are allowed to, when the Rambam holds you're not allowed to? Like what the answer? Depends. When does the Rambam hold that you're not allowed to? If it's a general Aveda, that's Yabba Bal Yeher. But if it's part of the Aveda of Yeher Bal Yabba, Elamai, this situation, that's the, but the problem would have been two problems. Number one, I wouldn't have a shear, but number two, the problem with what's the swara behind it? I mean, you could say it. Usually that's what we go. When we have a kasha, a steer between two places. What do you do? So usually it's not a steer, and the same thing says opposite. Lamai, this is similar to that. So the first way to get into understanding how to answer, basically that's the derech hanituach of the Reb Chaim, that you look first at the Metzias. And if you see that these two cases, they seem similar and the din is different, look at the details of the Metzias. Now, sometimes you won't see, so the Metzias is different. What's the difference? That's not negated to the din. And sometimes when you look at the Metzias, you will see that because of this Metzias, when you start analyzing the Metzias, you'll see, oh, that's why the din is different. So here also, there's two things here. The Metzias is different. This din is not like the Rambam talks about in the Aveda, that's not the Gimel Aveda, it's the Yaver Bal Yaver. Here is not that. Here is talking about Aveda, which Be'etzim is Yorim Bal Yaver. So that's the difference of Metzias. But it's not enough. So now we know the Metzias is different, but mainly that's why they did. But why? You have to come up with a svara there. That's what I'm coming up. But if the whole thing is not because Be'etzim he holds that anytime Yaver Bal Yaver, you're not allowed to, Elamai, it's totally in the whole svara I'm saying. So it could be that in a case like this, then that's different. Now, based on this, we can answer something else also. Under this. Yeah, just another few minutes. More in Kesubos, like in the second page. Again, what I'm going to say is not so push it, but you know, you got to try. Again, not what I say is not Kedesh Kedoshim. Everybody wants to know short. Here the Gemara says in that Kesubos base later on. They knows everyone knows the Gemara. Pona Rabbanon. Ain't the money in the place like you would have made it. Shomru Ksavideno Ze Avaloni Anusimayin. So the mayor says, ain't the money in the place. And the Gemara Ishlain on Pesos or Pesha. Cases Inksa Godin Nates Makamacha, Peshos or Pesha. Hit him in the middle of the Eller Mayor, my time. Bishlem Psuladis. We know it's not true. Aber Anusim, they say Anusim. Why does the mayor say Ein Amonim? You can't call them. See, there could be a sword Ein Od Mesim Asmei Rosha. He says that we signed it falsely. Ein Od Mesim, we can't believe it. But he says Anusim Ein. And you see Machmas Nefoshes. The Mele, they're not making themselves into a Rosha. So what could be the Chson? There is a Pesha Osef, and there's no Mesim Asmei Rosha. So the Gemara has a shayla. Amar Reb Chizdik, Sober Reb Meir, Eidim she'omru lem chasum u'sheker v'al tehargo yehargo v'al yachsheker. Yet they isn't making themselves a Russia. Even though they told them, they're warning them, we're going to kill you if you don't sign falsely. So the mayor holds that that's called a Russia. You have to get killed rather than sign. Amar le'rove, wow. Hashte ilu asinu osel kamon le'meluche amrina lo zil chasum v'leitis kat. They come and ask a shayla, can we sign or not? What did we tell them? About a sign. It's not Yerek Vayavet. Dom Amar, and look over Shem Nikum Desh, but there's a Shvichas Domim, Hasha the Chasim, Armelim, and Lumah Simsu, Elo, Tema, the time of the American, the Ravuna, different made of Pishash, because different things. Come to Ramban over there, and the Gemara, and the Ramban asks a Shaila, what was the Havamina? The Havamina was that you have to come and say a Nefesh, for not signing, not stealing money from somebody, because he's signing false and it makes the guy. So the Chura like this. So the Ramban answers, no Ramban answers. I'll get to the second. The Ramban answers that it's a hidur to get killed, even when it comes to something you don't have to. But B'meile, the Havamina was that you call the Rosh, which is Chal Derech Hagav, in a Musadik way. It's very interesting. The Havamina Gemara is that if you're not Mahader b'mitzvah, you're called a Rosh. Wow. But that's the Havamina. That if they told you, and Maskana the Gemara is, that's for a Hidur, you can't say that. And the Gemara, it makes sense, the Lashon of the Gemara. Gemara doesn't say, it shouldn't say, he says, if they would come to us, we would say, sign, don't get killed. What's the gay of that? Again, they're saying, you want to say it's a Hidur, and stuck a Hidur, and he did something wrong off the Hidur. But we can't make it in a Rosh if we would have self-passed like that. Anyway, but that's that. The Shaila is, but what about according to the Rambam? This is a good that it's according to the Rishonim that hold that for other Avedas it's a Hidur to be makes a Nefesh. It was a Hidur is also made a Rosh. According to the Rambam, you're not allowed to. So if you're not allowed, what's the Gemara's having that should be called a Rosh? I'm saying, based on what I said before, the Aveda of signing false for a star possibly is because it said the Rosh brings in the Kamer, Samach, and Alterem Shemor Paskin like that. You can't save your life by stealing money from somebody, unless El Samanas Lahafzer. But if it's not, so it seems to me an interesting thing when people say there are only 3 Avedas, but there's another Aveda. Stealing money, if you do it Al Nas Lahafzer, then that's not. But if you don't think Al Nas Lahafzer, you're not allowed to, you're rather get killed. So it comes out like this, that stealing, if we're not going to be Mechalek between signing false and stealing, because Betzim, it's in the same category, you take making back money. So it comes out stealing Betzim is an Aveda, Elamai, there's a way that you could get away from it. Why? Because if I'm Nas Lahafzer. The male, if we said before, the way we said before, if the etzem it's naveda which yorig vayav, elamai bepel mamish, there's no yorig vayav. Over there, the Rambam is made that it's a you're allowed to be over. You're allowed to be over. That's what the Gemara says. So it fits according to the Rambam also. That Havamina was that he was a header for him not to be over and to get killed, even according to the Rambam. That's what the Havamina was. That this is Pshat and Ameya, and the Kasha is, but how can you call Marosha for a heater? But according to what we said before, all fits. Bottom line is that we shouldn't need Mesiras Nefesh, and this is to be Mesiras Nefesh. To be nowadays Mesiras Nefesh is of Mesiras Harotzen, Nefesh is Harotzen, Zay Mesiras Harotzen, Nachtiv again, it's done, I say the Tzeinchot Yotzeynei, and that will be Yetzim Mesiras Nefesh, and then we all do that. Yetzim Mashiach.
Whenever brings the Maimer from the Pishik Rebbe and Nefesh for things that I'll succeed in after Nefesh for how does this all fit with basically as the game was Nefesh Alter Rebbe didn't want to eat.
Doesn't go according to the Rambam.
Alter Rebbe didn't. I did in prison. Didn't the officer said to him?
No, we don't know what to do there. Try to use this as a means to get the film.
No, the Alter Rebbe.
Also,
Eat not kosher. He said, "Why you're gonna yeah." So he said, "Even to commit suicide."
That's not according to the Rambam. Most Rishonim don't hold like that. But I didn't finish. Is the word of how the word sense. He's talking Mesiras Nefesh. He goes according to the Rambam. According to the Rambam, there's no mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh. The mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. He says, "Do a mitzvah from Kiddush Hashem." On Kiddush Hashem, ain't shir. Because according to the Rambam, the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem is you have to go all the way. If it means getting killed, get killed. But that's not the mitzvah. So these words, it's like
What's that?
differently. I'm saying some
Depends where he was trying to argue the mitzvah was about something. You have a rabbi. That is the
okay.
Signing on the shtar would only be a grundle for the summer. Maybe even the rush would be masking me. Maybe just have something. We matzel not sure if the moment directly maybe they can do. Only a grandma signing on a shtar to get him to his money.
What will happen if you say this?
What's Pshat not excluded in Mechburis? Also, Schapiro. Why wouldn't?
No, but he says clearly, that's a lot. Rush says this.
What's the mucker of the rush?
And the Gemara brings it. I think of some. Also, lots of music. And there's an eitzah not to do it. Have a mind to pay back. But in other words, the pale mamish will never come to it. You could always have a mind. But it just shows that be'etzem, it's such an issue. And maybe it is because there's a way to do it. Otherwise, never have it.
That's why it's not.
But maybe it's not included in the deal. It's be'etzem, but not be'etzem. Not because of etzem adin. But the ma'ase, adin, it would be like this.
But he's not shy from pay back. Doesn't have money.
Borrow. I don't think it's ever a chance not to say it.
Doesn't Taisus and Sayyid also ask regarding because also how the Tavera, right? Where you saw the Talmud, why is that not one of the four? Why don't we then say that there's four? They are
But it goes into
Shapiro says it's Lashon Tzachos, so you don't have to really.
But the other thing
Taisus before
no, but it goes into Shvichas Summer. Also, assume it was a figure.
Oh, that's yes. Romans. Differentiate between.
Comes to budgets. Something, and I think the Rashal says that the change from halacha has to be Moshe Nefesh not to save us.
They changed the title.
Them. Not Allah. But
I mean,
someone says there's like,
Yeah.
I didn't see
Roman
some
guys,
some say, but it says that they're allowed to be megala one in the Torah like halal for other good like at least last Hashem is very good to this.
That sound that when I heard that's what reminded me of. It reminded me of that, yeah. Like you were